Hello and welcome to Cherries Red Army. International break is here, but we are still here with Cherries in Focus, episode 8. You need to subscribe to the channel. Also hit the like button on this video. Get your thoughts in the comments at the end, because we're going to react to our progress in the Carabao Cup to that third round draw against Stoke City. We're also going to take a look at deadline day and some late action there. We'll get to that in just a little bit. And we'll also react to the 2-2 draw at Brentford, Bournemouth's second point on the board. Jon Spark is here, fresh from his watch along. How you doing, Jon?
Yeah, good, thanks. It was a very good watch along. Best viewing numbers so far of the 3 we've done. Hopefully get more of that over the coming weeks. But thanks again for bringing me on.
Steve, good day in Brentford. Well, we'll talk about that in a bit. We scored anyway, which is what we were looking for. How you doing?
Yeah, very good, mate. Yeah, thanks for having me on again.
And Aaron, did you last the 90 minutes in Brentford?
He did.
Did. Yes, absolutely did. Had a nice day out, and thanks for having me on again.
Thank you very much. And let's get stuck into it, guys. Let's start about a week ago in the Carabao Cup second round. We got Andoni Iraola's first win, just about 3-2 over Swansea. That was followed with the draw at home versus Stoke City in the third round. Straight to you, Steve. You were there. Game of 2 halves, it sounds like.
Yeah, but a win. So that's all I wanted to see, and we got one. It wasn't pretty first half. As I'm sure everybody knows by now, it was the epitome of a game of 2 halves. It was like watching two completely different sides that, from the first half to the second half. First half was unbearable at times. We were so disjointed, giving the ball away all the time, and not sort of players that you would thought, they're on the fringe. These were players that sort of you would come to rely on, and they weren't clicking at all. Come the half time, I mean, it must have been a rocket up the arse from Andoni, because and the changes obviously helped the 3 lads that came on, and we looked like a different beast in the second half, really did. Made hard work of it, but there was only one team going to win that second half, and thankfully that was us. And now we're in the draw for a home tie against Stoke. At least we have to go away to Stoke, which is good.
Looking forward to it. John, Hammer Traore could have had a hat-trick. He got a decisive one, though, and that will boost his confidence. Didn't follow it up with a start in the Premier League, but good for Traore trying to prove a point. Yeah,
well, he put the ball in the back of the net 3 times, but unfortunately 2 of those didn't count because of offsides. You could tell. I think I mentioned it in the last show we did of some description, or a show, that Traore's celebration really looked like he just was releasing all this pent-up energy that he had of all the frustrations of not doing anything for the side in terms of goals or assists until that point. So, just being in the right place at the right time is obviously a really good thing. And, he's showed glimpses of that as well. Obviously, him and Billing got in each other's way for that one opportunity against Liverpool. It doesn't surprise me that it didn't start at all, because I think it's pretty clear that at the moment, without Adams, and certainly without Scott as well, we've got a preferable midfield 3 of Billing, Christie, and Cook. Even Cook is very definitely favoured to Rothwell as the number 6. So even if Traore had a good performance, he would need to have been exceptional, I think, to force his way into the side. And I think if he'd got the hat-trick, he might well have done so. But I think we'll come on to the Brentford performance, but I certainly do think that putting him in instead of Christie or Billing, I think probably wouldn't have necessarily got us quite the result we wanted. But very, very good for him to get some game time and get the goal.
And Darren, it would end up being an eventful week for David Brooks, who got on the score sheet in that Swansea game. And I am going to say this right if you think that I said it wrong. Ryan Christie scored the winner.
Yeah, delighted for Brooksy. Obviously, his first competitive goal, obviously following it up again on Saturday with another one. Great pass from Jadon Anthony and a great finish. I was listening to it on Solent, so obviously only saw the goals on as they were going in on Sky. But didn't obviously have the full picture that Steve had. But yeah, it did sound pretty poor first half. But we got the job done. And I think, first win of the season, that's the all important thing. And yeah, great to see Ryan Christie scoring a goal. His performances have merited it. Should have got another one on Saturday, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, he's definitely firing, and hopefully doing the world of good as well. But no, great to get through. A relief at the end, because if it had gone to penalties, who knows what would have happened.
So that does mean that we will be playing Stoke City at the end of September in the third round. That will see a return of Ben Pearson to Dean Court. We definitely know that. Do we know, guys, if Mark Travers is available to play? I know that Jack Tanner from the Dorset Echo wanted to just go and double check that. I would expect that he's probably cut-tied. Does anyone know any other information around this? Because if Mark Travers can't play, I want him in the stands doing a Ramsdale.
I don't think so. I think it would be very weird, considering the typical thing in the Premier League is that you can't play against the team that you're on loan from. Apparently it can be done. That's what Tanner wanted to make sure he was confirming, but it's not like in Europe where it's kind of just a given that you'll play against your hometown, the club that you're on loan from. But yeah, I don't expect them to play.
That was the start of a busy week then, and we did our transfer live show on Thursday, which was fantastic, really interactive, and we thought that there would be some movement on deadline day. There were some outgoings. There was Jamal Lowe to Swansea. We thought that Kiefer Moore guys would go out on loan, and it looked like for that to happen, Daka had to come in the other way from Leicester. That seemed to be on. What I'm hearing is that Kiefer Moore didn't fancy the move to Millwall. Not sure how true that is, but then the Daka deal was off. So are we saying that Moore not going sort of tripped up the Daka deal?
I think so. I think it probably was a key component if we wanted to make space in the team. It's a difficult one because I think these clubs leave it right to the last minute, and then they're trying to get all these good deals for players or players that haven't been picked up necessarily and looking for a move. But then there's components like for the other clubs that may want to, something in return, as it was a little bit like with the Lloyd Kelly deal. So I don't know. I can understand that Kiefer didn't want to. If it didn't suit him, he didn't have to go and didn't want to go, and that may have scuppered the deal. But it's definitely one that would have helped us and given Dom some really good competition in that forward position.
Kiefer Moore is getting a little bit of stick for me. I don't want it to be forgotten, the job he did in that promotion push. I mean, he come away, he joined us, and then very early on, inside 5 minutes off the bench, got a really bad ankle injury. And then he worked really hard to get fit. He scored goals at Swansea. He scored that massive goal against Nottingham Forest. He scored on the final day of the season against Millwall. He scored some brilliant goals at the start of the Premier League season. Then his form dipped, and I think he probably lacked confidence when Gary O'Neill got the job full time, wasn't being worked into the team at the right moments. Is anyone else seeing that Kiefer Moore's getting a little bit of stick? And I think that we shouldn't forget the job that Kiefer Moore's done. And there's no doubt that he wants to prove himself at this level. And I think when Kiefer Moore is in confidence and flying, he is a good striker. Whether he fits the style that Andoni wants to play is another question. But I feel a little bit sorry for Kiefer Moore at the moment.
Yeah, no, I do. I think, I've heard both sides from what Steve was saying, because one side I've heard is that, as Steve said, he needs to be moved on for Daka to come in. The other side is that we couldn't get the Daka deal over the line for whatever reason, so we couldn't let him go. So I don't know which one is true, but he certainly shouldn't be getting stick either way. I just don't think he was used effectively. We know what he's good at. We need to get crosses in the box. He's not going to run the channels. He's not going to stretch defenses. He's not going to particularly be able to press, although he's quite mobile for a big guy, but he's not going to press in the way that Iraola wants him to. He's in the team for crosses and to use his head, and although he is good with his feet, although he didn't show that at Liverpool necessarily, he showed last season at times in the Premier League he's unstoppable and he's unplayable, but we just haven't seen that for a while. And I think the way that Iraola wants to play, pace down the wings, stretching defenses, Daka, I'm still 50-50 about whether he was the right person or, but what he certainly was done was stretch the back line. And I just think Kiefer Moore will always be, unfortunately for him, for us anyway, a plan B if you need to score a goal in the last few minutes. But even then, he might not be used because we've got other options, obviously, still on the bench. And whether he finds himself off the bench when everyone's fit, that's going to be a key question as well.
Yeah, that is the thing at the moment with Kiefer Moore. You're right. He's never going to be the starter under this system if Solanke's fit. He just won't be, because he can't do the same level of pressing. He can't then run the line as well. He can't do everything that Dom can do, although he should be able. The things that we know he can do, he's not shown that he's capable of doing them at the moment. And I think that is a confidence issue. He's not getting much game time, and when he gets it, he's not really warm. Warming up is kind of, you have to do that, but you know what I mean. He's not getting touch of the ball. You see there's a chance that he's fluffing, the heading that's not coming up right. If he's going to show that he's capable of performing at this level, he needs to play more often, but he's not going to get that game time. So we're in an awkward catch-22, and he is one of the easiest players to improve on in terms of squad quality and depth that we have at the moment. But if he was producing the kind of goals and touches and ability that he showed at the beginning of our last Premier League season, obviously when he was going on scoring goals in our Championship season, then I don't think people would be talking about him in the same way. But that's what, football can change in the space of 90 minutes, let alone half a year. So that's why Kiefer Moore is not really rated that much by the fan base at the moment.
And Steve, although I could see the attributes of what Daka could bring to this team, he hasn't set the world alight for Leicester in his 2 seasons that he was there. Before he was at Leicester, he was scoring 28 goals in the Bundesliga, but he didn't quite match that. So I could see that he could bring pace and press, but yeah, it was an okay signing, but probably the best we could have got if we were going for a striker.
Yeah, as you say, if it's not really a wash with targets that are realistic in that sort of role, is it? And everybody is looking for that really good young up and coming striker, and then just not very many of them. So Daka, we know he's got experience, albeit it's not, like you said, it hasn't set the world alight. I think it's something like 9 goals in 2 seasons or something for Leicester. It's we moan about Dom, and then we go and bring in somebody with that sort of record. And albeit that's probably a lot of those appearances are off the bench, because I pretty much think Vardy was probably starting most of those games for Leicester. But I think if you couldn't sort of get numbers in that Leicester side before they had the season they had when they went down, they weren't, they still were quite a threatening side on the break, and he still didn't really get into the team and get numbers. So I just think it didn't scream of anything. It just didn't seem like a great signing to me. It seemed like he was good in a lesser division. I think it was it? Am I right in thinking it was Salzburg he was at, John?
Yeah,
it was Austrian Bundesliga.
It's the Austrian Bundesliga, not the German, but yeah. So with all due respect, I think that is a level below the Premier League. So maybe it's just a bit of cover and a bit of competition for Dom that suits our style a bit more. So I can see it from that point of view, but it certainly didn't excite me when I heard it.
James Hill has also gone on loan, season-long loan to Blackburn Rovers, so we wish him well. And something that was doing the rounds that we were aware of on the day before transfer deadline day was this Lloyd Kelly movement potentially to Spurs. And I want to talk about this, guys. Spurs are putting a bid for Lloyd Kelly. My understanding is that the club rejected that a week before. Now, the club potentially were expecting another bid. There was discussions in whether Eric Dyer would come the other way. Again, what I've read reports, Eric Dyer wasn't that keen. And I know we spoke about that on our live stream. And then match day, the following day after deadline day, Lloyd Kelly wasn't in the squad. And Chris Temple tweeted to say that he wasn't injured. Now, I know I've tweeted about this. If you follow X or Twitter, my tweet wasn't probably the best worded one, but I was disappointed that Lloyd Kelly wasn't in the squad. So let's get this right, because I know, John, you come off the back of my tweet as well. If it was a club decision, I'm disappointed. If Lloyd Kelly wasn't in the right space to play, I'm a little bit disappointed 1 game away from the international break. Lloyd Kelly's on a contract currently. The ball might be in his court if he doesn't sign a new one very, very quickly. For me, you put the shirt on, you play for the badge. If the club decided that Lloyd Kelly wasn't ready, we potentially, John, given up £20 million, which we all agreed, I think, was a good deal, if that was on the table. And he could sign for a club free transfer next season, and he wasn't available. to help us in that Brentford game. I was a little bit frustrated by it, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's never quite, as much as we'd all like it to be very simple, it's just pretty much never is. And the difficulty for us is that we can take that 20 million, that'd be great, but we don't really have a natural replacement. Even if Eric Dyer had come in, we're still losing some cover at left back. We still lose a left-footed centre back, which is pretty important to have in this, in this system, which relies a lot on the ability of the centre backs. You've only got to look at Senesi's assist in the game, then we come on to Solanke. That ball that a right footer just isn't going to play. So, if we don't have the cover, it's difficult to just take the 20 million and then suffer in that regard. And I think James Hill would have been well on his way to Blackburn by that point, who would be the only other centre back that we probably have to hold on to. But the other thing is that I do find it relatively standard procedure, and I find it pretty normal. I mean, if you go back to Moises Caicedo last season in January, when Arsenal put in a pretty significant bid for him, Caicedo put a statement out on social media saying that, thank you very much, Brighton fans, but I really, really want to go to Arsenal. And Brighton says, no chance, you're not going anywhere. You're not even training with us. Go on holiday for a week, sit out and wait until the end of the transfer window. And he went nowhere, came back in and played fantastically the rest of the season, got a 15 million pound move 6 months later. Now, obviously, it's slightly different with us because Lloyd Kelly will be out of contract in 12 months, but he could still go in January when we bring in an ideal replacement. I think if you have the mentality that, bear in mind, Bournemouth fans have been awful to Lloyd Kelly at times during his career with us. If you have the opportunity to move to a Spurs side that, let's not get it twisted, is a pretty decent top 4 contender this season because they have been very impressive under a new manager. A clean slate, better pay, more quality to be around you. There's so many positives to that. If you then are told and you're convinced you're going to go, if you're then told no, you're going to be affected by it. And if you're not in the right state of mind to come onto a football pitch and commit yourself 100% a day after you've been told you're not going or you thought you were going to go, I don't have an issue with the club saying, look, you're not clearly ready. If you were injured and you were 50% fit, I'm not bringing you. In this case, your mentality is not 100% right, so I'm not going to bring you. So I get it from any direction. I think it's pretty standard procedure, personally.
But Steve or Aaron, if the stance was clear by the club, how I understand it, we're not selling Lloyd Kelly, whether we're going to take a loss on the 20 mil, maybe make 10 mil in January and sort out the situation. If the stance is clear, you'll play for the club. I just don't get it.
I get where you're coming from. I think Paulinho was exactly the same, right? He was even further down the line. He had a picture with he had a picture with the.
Yeah, but we weren't at that stage. Our stance was clear. We're not selling you.
No, but
so we prepare for Brentford.
No, but I think as Jon said, there was a lot of attraction to going to Spurs. He's one injury away from playing regularly for Spurs because he would have been the backup to Van der Ven, back up to their new left back as well. A young English centre back, left-sided centre back is a rare commodity, and I think he probably saw the bright lights of London. As Jon said, he hasn't massively got a great relationship with the Bournemouth supporters, so what was he going to really leave behind? So I can imagine his head wasn't in the right space, but at the same time, you're right. The club obviously could have insisted he played, but then if you're not in the right headspace, that could have affected morale and also his performance on the pitch as well, I guess. You're right. He didn't go as far down the line as Paulinho, who obviously sat out the Fulham game against Manchester City. And obviously now is expected to play the rest of the season. But I'm hoping with the international break, Lloyd will, because as I said in my last show, when Lloyd Kelly's at his best, he's outstanding. One of our best defender by far. It's up to him now to whether he signs a new contract or whether he doesn't sign a new contract. He's going to want to continue to impress any would-be suitors. That might be to our detriment if we lose him for nothing at the end of the season. But he's going to want to impress. He's going to want to play. And I think Jon also hit the nail on the head. Is we cannot, on the last day of the transfer window, sell a player who we would be able to replace 2 positions with. We just couldn't do it. So I don't know if it was as black and white as the club saying you're not going, period, or we're going to try and get someone else in, hold on. And he was hopeful, and then we just couldn't. So we said sorry. I'm sure we might. I don't know if it was a case we never entertained it at all. We might well have entertained it, but we had to do our own research and we couldn't come up. So, yeah, it's a difficult one. I can see both sides of it, obviously.
Are we going to regret, Steve, potentially not accepting £20 million? Could we have got to January with other players looking after that left back cover, as we have seen before? I would not condone what some of the fans have done to Lloyd Kelly. I totally agree with John, and I stuck up for Lloyd Kelly so much in the last couple of seasons. But there was an opportunity to take £20 million for a player that's not consistently played well enough and had injury problems.
Yeah, but our squad suffers with injury problems, and I think this is probably, in my opinion, is probably what the club were looking at, is that if we couldn't get a replacement in, like the boys have spoken about, we're then very stretched if a couple of injuries happen to our centre backs. That's where I think it's all gone awry, because I think Lloyd would have wanted to move, like we've said, and in my opinion, this is, I don't know, because no one really knows, but I think what's happened, Lloyd wanted to go. The club were probably holding out for a little bit more money. It didn't come in. And they turned down the 20 million, and they said he couldn't go because, unless it's a good amount of money, we can't take that risk. If it's got to be an amount of money that we couldn't sort of say no to, sort of thing. Otherwise, it's not worth taking the risk. That's the way I think it probably played out. And I think Lloyd probably got a bit cheesed off with that decision, and hence why he's come out and said, people have come out and said he's not in the right headspace, which usually means there's been a disagreement or something like that. So that's where I think it's happened. It could get to a point where we do lose him for free, which will be, a very annoying situation again, much like the Jeff situation. But that is football, I'm afraid, these days. Yeah. The players do hold a lot more power than they ever did. And, if he doesn't want to sign a new contract, he's just going to sit there and let it run down, unfortunately.
There's no way that Daniel Levy was going to spunk a third of Harry Kane's money.
No, exactly.
And that's probably what we were holding out for.
Exactly.
Talking of spending
that's the
money,
other thing, isn't it? Sorry, just to carry on. It's that whole thing of when a club knows that someone's got that sort of cash, they start playing these games with them. They we can get a bit more, we can get a bit more, we can get a bit more. And like Aaron's just pointed out, Daniel Levy is absolutely no fool. He's not going to be playing that sort of money.
No. Talking of spending money, Bill Foley did spend money. He spent 117 million, and we did get one more player through the door on deadline day with a twist. But let's just remind ourselves of the 8 players we bought to AFC Bournemouth. So, yes, one more check was going to be written for a winger, guys. For a winger. Who would have thought it? Lewis Sinisterra from Leeds with a late twist. The deal sheet went in. Sinisterra came in. Jayden Anthony on loan to Leeds, and his Instagram changed as well for a bit. What are we thinking here? Now, I've had time to think about it. I think this is a pretty good move for Jayden Anthony, if I'm being completely honest. I think once players got back fit, Tavernier, we know, got off the bench against Brentford, which we'll speak about in a bit. Dango Utara, Kluivert's making more of an impact in the squad selections. I think Jayden Anthony would have been limited with time, guys, and I think this could give him an opportunity to go and rip up the Championship again. getting more minutes, he would have been a little bit disappointed by it. I think Andoni said that he had to speak to him on the day and just ask him how he felt about stuff. But Sinisterra in, Jaden Inty out. Anyone got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of gutted because like that is my one sort of like person that I've part of the squad that's sat over my shoulder is Jaden Anthony. He's not even playing for us at the moment. Not that you can really read the writing from my camera, but it's having chatted to a few different people, it is very much seems to be the consensus that if everyone's fit, Anthony's not starting, and he's probably struggling to make the bench as well because of the sheer volume of wingers that we've got in the squad now. So for him to get the opportunity to go to Leeds, where he is almost certainly going to be a starting winger, where he last in that promotion season got, I think it was 9 goals and 6 or 7 assists, like really, really good numbers, was one of the leading ball winners in terms of forwards in the entire league, featured in 45 games, starting 36 of them. You know, he's got the quality to really improve that, really strut his stuff for Leeds in the Championship. And you think at his age, the more he plays, the better he's going to get. And I think that so far, he's not necessarily shown that he's got the quality to impact a game from the start in the Premier League. I think he's certainly been able to do it from the bench. You know, we all remember his match-winning goal against Nottingham Forest. I mean, he scored 3 goals last season, got 1 assist. But it's an upgrade in terms of, if you look at Luis Sinisterra, his numbers when he played for Leeds over the last 2 seasons. When he played for Leeds last season, the issue was that he didn't play very much in terms of he featured less than 900 minutes, which is not very good. But in the season before that, when he was at Feyenoord, he got 12 goals and 7 assists. So, you know, he's shown that he can put up decent numbers in a top division. It's just a case of maintaining his fitness. And because we've got so many players available to play in that position, you'd think we're able to rotate nicely. And, you know, we can make it work. The one thing I just think is that if you look at the wingers that we've got and the available options we've got, outside of Tav and Ouattara, there's not much proven creativity in the Prem. Most of the players that we could play out wide either didn't get many assists or have barely got any assists last season. So I am a little bit worried about that. But I think in terms of a goal scorer, we've definitely got an improvement in Sinisterra.
Steve, I know what you did. You did something similar that I did. So I saw this pop up. Go and look at his injury record on Transfermarkt. Yeah, he's had a few injuries.
It's the first thing I do now because of our injury record. It's ridiculous. Why am I looking? I should be looking at his goal record. I'm looking at how often he's injured.
Go look him on YouTube.
But no, I actually thought he played for Reading because he was. Everyone was calling him Biscuit Knees. It's ridiculous. No, it's not happy reading. That was. I'll be brutally honest with you. That's my big concern about it. As John said, he is an upgrade. I'm not doubting that. It's just whether it's a fit. You know, he can keep himself fit. Because I've heard people say that, you know, on his day he should be playing Champions League if he could keep himself fit. And that's the big issue that the Leeds fans have with him. We have got, you know, so many wingers to choose from, so it's not as though we haven't got cover for him. But I just find it's the signing for me. It just wasn't one that I thought we needed. It's exciting, don't get me wrong, but it's just not one I thought we needed to bring in. But if we can keep him fit, he's a definite upgrade and a definite exciting prospect for the season.
It was a bit of a sad moment for some on the Jaden Anthony side, Aaron, because once upon a time we had Jordan Zamora and Jaden Anthony ripping up the left-hand side, albeit in the Championship. Now both of them have exited the club in different ways. But we hope Jaden can come back stronger. I'm not sure he was completely on it. I know he was getting game time. He was starting most matches in the first 3 or 4 games, but I felt his control was a little bit off. He wasn't as explosive as we've seen him before. I don't know if he was feeling the pressure to have to take the chance that was given to him. But I think it's going to be a good move for him.
Yeah, I really hope so. He was he's one of the good ones. A credit, always the first to clap the fans, always one without a doubt. Came around, you know, one of our own, whatever we want to say. I do hope that he is as successful for Leeds in the Championship as he was for us. But again, there's always that question without Zamora. The two of them were just never the same without each other. So that would be interesting to see. And obviously he's got Nonto and Somerville ahead of him potentially. So I hope he can break in and play. But I think it was a bit misleading about his. A lot of people have said, why would Andoni let him go when he played, 3 of the first 4 games? I think it was a bit misleading because obviously Tavernier was injured. Dango got injured. I think Dango certainly would have started on the left if he hadn't got injured as well. I think Justin Kluivert was settling in. So, and I think, he's improving from what I can see. Although when everyone's fit, I still don't think Kluivert will be a starter, but I think Kluivert would always going to be ahead of Anthony. So he was well down the pecking order. As I said, we were going to get rid of someone that had to be another winger. So he hadn't started the season particularly well. So I think it was a sensible move. It is certainly an upgrade. Echo what everyone else has said about the injury situation, but hopefully between him and Tavernier, one of them can be fit at any one time. And maybe questions about how long Otara is going to be out for as well, potentially, because he obviously wants pace on the wings. And as good as Brooksy has been, and I still think he has a massive part to play this season, he hasn't got that raw pace. Obviously, Christie hasn't. We know that Tavernier has. We know what Dango has. But if Dango's out, then we know that Sinisterra also has a lot of pace. So, again, like Steve said, was it a priority? No. I still would have liked to have seen us bring in another centre defensive midfielder or a left back, because that's where there's an imbalance in the squad. And I'm a bit mystified about that, because if Tyler Adams gets injured, Lewis Cook,
square one.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis Cook did okay on Saturday. I still don't think he's a person long term if Adams gets another bad injury. And as we've all said, if Kirkers gets injured, then I don't particularly like Lloyd Kelly at left back or Adam Smith at left back. So it's a bit of a funny one, but options there, and that's what we want from the bench. If the starters are not firing, then if we start with Otara and Tavernier, if we're starting with Tavernier and Otara, then we've got Sinisterra and Semenya to come off the bench, and Kluivert, whichever way around you look at it. So it's going to be a hell of a headache when everybody's fit, if we ever get to a stage when everyone's fit.
So we'll wish Jayden Anthony well. Can we wish Jayden Anthony well without wishing Leeds to do well? Is that okay? Like a personal wish you well, Jayden Anthony. That's your roundup on deadline day. If you're enjoying this episode, do subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 2K, and hit the like button. Helps the video grow throughout the week. We can also take this opportunity to thank you monthly members who support the channel, or anyone who donates. You can donate or become a member at buymeacoffee.com/Cherries Red Army. It's not really a coffee, but it's a small donation that you can make. Link in the description. But we're going to move on now to our final game before that international break, which was at the G-Tech Community Stadium. We were going for our first win there. Nearly so close. We'll talk about it. But here is your match day notes. Brentford 2, Bournemouth 2.
Invited the Cherries to the G-Tech Community Stadium in what proved to be a game of 2 halves. Brentford took an early lead from a direct Matthias Jensen's free kick as the Danes spotted Neto's poor positioning, catching the goalkeeper off guard at the near post. The situation had caused confusion, with the goal line technology not showing the ball to across the line. However, precisely 13 seconds later, it proved to be faulty, as the goal had been given after the virtual assistant referee intervened. Just before the break, Dominic Solanke, who made his 100th career appearance in the Premier League, levelled from a composed shot that glazed through the legs of defender Ben Mee. After the break, Marcus Tavernier, who made the switch, forced Rico Henry into a mistake, resulting in substitute David Brooks tapping it home from close range, giving the Cherries the lead deep into the second half, making it the Welshman's first top-flight goal in over 3 years. The travelling team were just minutes from what would have been their first Premier League win in 8 outings since they beat Leeds last year 4-1 under Iraola's predecessor, but instead buckled in the final moments with Mbeumo's late stoppage time strike, robbing Iraola of the chance to celebrate a first win.
It was fantastic. I think we were completely all over Bournemouth, so if you look at the overall game, we should clearly have won. I think we have a few massive chances before they score and we make a mistake. So Rico Henry has been unbelievable for us. It happens. So performance, fantastic. Mentality in the team, fantastic. This team, they never give up, never.
Yes, at the end is a good point here in Brentford. But there are moments during the game we were playing well, we were controlling the game, we were the better team, I think, but there are moments at the end of the game where we were conceding too much space and we weren't defending really good when we were in low block.
Bournemouth now enters a 2-week international break, coming at an ideal time as Iraola awaits his injured players to return, ready for their next home outing.
Thank you, Ollie Windsor. I told you guys, didn't I? Right, I'm going to tell you now. I went away with the wife last year. We won 3-2 at the City Ground. I go away with the wife for her birthday. This year, we get a draw at Brentford. I'm the problem. But I am going to go on more away days. Guys, I only caught the highlights. John watched the match on the watch along, and Aaron and Steve were at the game. Thomas Frank said Brentford should have won the game. I saw that woodwork of Neto's get a bit of action as well, but 2-2 looked like a really good game.
Yeah, it was. I think certainly for the neutral. In terms of, I'm not entirely sure about the idea of a game of two halves. I would more say that it was even in the first half, and then we got battered in the second half. For the most part, you've only got to look at the momentum bar on SofaScore to see how much Brentford really were all over us for pretty much all of the second half. But it didn't really matter when we went 2-1 up, and it looked like we were going to get more than maybe we deserved out of that game. In terms of just purely the goals, it's just frustrating that it was basically purely down to two mistakes, because in the end, it's Brentford's finishing massively let them down. And when they made really, really good chances for themselves, they couldn't put it away. They only scored because Neto had a complete lapse for half of a minute and made two massive mistakes very early on. And then Kirkes, who'd gone down with cramp earlier, ends up diving in to try and intercept a ball he was never going to get anywhere near. And if it had been maybe 30 minutes into the game, he wouldn't have made that decision. And Mbeumo does take, as much as it's frustrating how much I keep finding it replayed on Twitter, and Mbeumo's touch is glorious to set himself through for that second goal. But yeah, it's disappointing to draw when you are winning after 3 minutes of injury time. But in reality, take the whole game into account, and a draw is maybe even more than we deserve because how many good chances Brentford created. But you take it every day of the week.
Of the 4 goals that were in that game, Steve, 3 of them were down to errors. So in theory, Bournemouth could have won that game 1-0. But when you go back to that final moment for Kirkes, and I watch the highlights, and I'm just, why is he diving in? Just stand up and make Mbeumo go round you, or give yourself a chance to get a centre-back to get over and help you. I'm reading from people that watched the game properly, unlike myself that was unable to do that. He was just tired.
I don't necessarily think that's the reason he did that challenge. I think it's just a bit of naivety and young exuberance, thinks he can win every ball, and he just makes a naive mistake. And Mbeumo, as much as John and I've seen this all over Twitter as well, like people saying what a touch it was. And yes, it's a great touch, but Kirkes makes his mind up for him. Because he's diving in, he knows he's only got one way to turn and to sort of control the ball with his turn. And even if he gets it slightly wrong, he's still in behind Kirkes because Kirkes has put himself on his backside. So it's a risk-free sort of touch for it's got high reward because he knows he's in behind. Yeah, I mean, going through the game, that you say like the 3 of them were mistakes, individual errors, and it's concerning me that it wasn't just the goals. There was a lot of it individual errors. I mean, Senesi got away with one. I think it was Visser hit the post on that occasion where he tried to come in and win the ball and completely made a hash of it. We were very fortunate on that occasion. John's right in saying that it was the manner of the equaliser. Sorry, not the manner of it, but the timing of it. Because we'd got our noses in front by hook or by crook. We got there, and we're all on cloud 9. And then a bit of a disastrous decision made by Kirkes, who was brilliant for the rest of the game, might I add. And all of a sudden, we've thrown it away, and it's just very frustrating in the way it happened. And but Brentford really, I do have a little. I'm sure in the stats it looks like Brentford battered us, and they did hit the post 3 times or whatever it was. Albeit I think it was who was the young lad who hit the post. He was
Lewis Potter.
He was quite away offside, wasn't it?
Sade hit the post as well. I think the Potter one.
But the Sade one was a save, wasn't it?
Yeah,
was that the one? But
it was.
I didn't feel like we were getting battered until we went to a back five. And that was the point where I think Andoni made a bit of a hiccup for me. Christie was by far and away our best player all afternoon. He was absolutely everywhere. If Dom doesn't get in his way, he has a little tap in at one point. He just absolutely... I don't know what he must have 20 Weetabix every morning because he's got incredible energy.
His energy.
It's mental. And you just got to love him for that. And I think that's why Andoni loves him. But once he came out and was replaced with Mepham, we had such a big space in the midfield that they could just have all day with passing the ball around, looking for gaps. And it's it's a little bit Gary O'Neill and Parker in a way. It's the sort of thing we used to see them doing. And I was a bit, I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to see the game out and you're trying to be solid defensively. But Andoni's always spoken about doing his defending higher up the pitch. And in that instance, he kind of does the opposite. And he reverts to us dropping deep, playing 5 across back. And ultimately, like we've seen a million times under other managers, it cost us.
I think yeah.
Go on, sorry, Aaron. I've gassed on this. No. I was just going to gas on some more.
I think the difference was, and I was actually saying to everyone around me that it's refreshing he's not going to back five because he didn't do it straight after the 2-1. You know, we kept going for another goal. Brooks had a shot just wide. I think we had another couple of efforts, and it was just end-to-end football, and I loved every minute of it, and it was just so refreshing. And I think I understand what Thomas Frank's coming from, but there was a period about 15 minutes before Dom actually scored where we were all over them. You know, to de-quote Thomas Frank, we were all over you, mate. So, you know, it was chance. And we were saying, if we're not going to, it was Christie's chance and Christie's shot wide and Semenyo's header, which was well saved off the line. And it was just wave after wave of attack. And it was just great to see. And I don't think Brentford had any answer to us. So I think the first half belonged to us. I think the second half obviously belonged to Brentford. But it was just great to see that we were trying to fight fire with fire. The reason Brentford had a lot of those counter attacks and hit the post and had chances is because we were committing men forward, and we know under Iraola we're going to concede goals, but we're going to score goals, and we ended up scoring 2. Could have got more. But yeah, then it went to the back five. The only thing I thought of at the time was that they were trying to get as many crosses in as possible, and obviously an extra centre back heading the ball might help. I personally, if Christie generally couldn't have carried on, because as Steve said, he was acceptable. If Christie couldn't have carried on, I would have put Rothwell on at that time just to plug another energy in the midfield.
That's what I would have done.
Yeah, and it's disappointing because, as you say, you know, you get into injury time, you're 3 minutes in, and you're counting. You can see that you're counting down 3 minutes. We thought we'd done it, and we thought, here we go, our first win. But you know, in the cold light of day, it's not like it was a smash and grab for Brentford. They did certainly deserve a draw, and I think we were all pretty happy going out. I think if it had been midway through the season, we would have been more happy. The fact that it would have been our first win, we were so close to that first win, that's what made it a bit more galling. Because everything about the day felt great. You know, the best bit of the day for me was the chant of yellows, because that took me right back to the mid-late 90s, and I love that.
Can I just come back on Andoni's decision there? Because I think that is the first time he's gone to a back five so far this season, isn't it? Yeah. And I do think that this is a very specific situation where he's gone to a back five for a reason. And I do think there was a lot of wonderful use of hindsight from a lot of people online and Twitter, particularly saying Kirkes went down with cramp earlier. Why didn't you take him off? And which led to a decent bit of blame with Lloyd Kelly, with people forgetting the fact that Adam Smith was on the bench. He could easily have put Lloyd Kelly at left back, and I think he probably should have done. And I think I will say that was a mistake from Andoni, because he has the option. You need that experience and a bit of freshness. The reason he goes to the back five there with a midfield 2 is because Brentford don't attack through the middle. They just don't. The only attacks that really you can remember, that I think I can remember them going directly through the middle, is the long ball over the top through to Sade, where Aaron's just about does enough to put him off and Neto tips it onto the post. Every other attack they do comes from out wide, and that's basically every attack I can remember them doing, particularly when we went down to when it was right near the end of the game. Whenever they were camped in our half, it was out wide to Mbeumo, who needed to do something against someone one-on-one and put a cross in. And bearing in mind as well how diabolical we have been from set pieces, putting another centre back in might as well have been something that could have really benefited us from defending set pieces. at the end of the day, the mistake doesn't come from having a back five, because if we had a back four, that goal happens just exactly the same, because Kirkes makes the same decision regardless of who's next to him. I think that in most games he won't make that choice. In most games, I don't think he'll make that choice, and it's one of those. I just don't think that. While it's something that a lot of us can sort of latch onto, because it's something that we've all been incredibly frustrated about by because of Gary O'Neill's choices and Scott Parker's choices. Welcome Wolves fans to the joy you'll be having over the rest of this season. I just think that is a very specific situation he's made that choice in. And I think that had Kirkes not made that error, I think we were seeing out that the end of the game pretty darn comfortably, despite being very defensive. And I think that, heck, we got our second goal from a really swift counter. We may have done it again. You never know. But anyway, that's my choice.
The point I was trying to... Yeah, I get... The point I'm trying to make is that we're not very good defensively, and we haven't been.
Have we ever?
Well, this is what I mean. And we... Yeah.
Isn't it what managers do, though, Steve?
It's a panic.
They all do it, don't they? Why do you go 3-0 up against Arsenal when you played a certain way? 60 minutes into the game, Arsenal got to score 3 to try and get a result, and you take all your strikers off and you step back 50 yards. Why does it happen in football?
I don't know. I'm just sort of trying to get onto our defending as a whole, in not just this game, but just under Iraola completely. I mean, the second half, I don't know if you agree, Aaron, I just thought we were absolutely dreadful, winning aerial duels, one-on-one battles. We were very poor, and we got away with a hell of a lot. And I just don't. It almost seems to me like it's great to see all this attacking football and these flying wingers and Ryan Christie running his socks off and all the rest of it. But defensively, we are very, very poor. And I just feel like if your mantra is to attack, attack is the best form of defense, and then you retreat into a defensive formation very deep, it just didn't make any sense to me. I didn't think we dealt with a lot of the crosses very well. We were very fortunate. I don't think we won a header from a cross all afternoon. I was getting so frustrated with it. It was really bad.
What was odd was that I thought Zabani and Senesi actually had their poorest games for a long time. And I actually think as a defensive unit that they should be and are good defenders. I just thought they were both off it, which actually made the whole Lloyd Kelly thing even more ironic, because especially with the pace that Brentford had, there's an argument that, forgetting all the Spurs thing, Kelly would have started, and there's a reason for Kelly's to start ahead of them, and that didn't, that might be the case. I don't know, but I've got more faith in our defence now than potentially in previous seasons. But forget Zabani's so young as well. What's he, 19 or 20 or whatever it is? He's so young as well, and so they just had a bit of an off day. I think they were bullied. I think Brentford aren't going to come top 6 or anything like that, but I think in some respects their front three are a real handful. They're all very quick. They're all quite physically strong, and play a certain way. And another thing people haven't mentioned, and it's not obviously directly his fault, but Neto's goal kick straight down the middle of the blooming pitch to Ben Mee, who then played it to Mbuemo where Kirkes was. I mean, with 3 minutes still, 2.5 minutes to go, play it down the sides. We had everyone down the side. You kick the ball down the side. It went straight down the middle where none of our players were, and allowed the centre back just to play the ball in. Obviously, what happened with Kirkes happened, etc. That could have been stopped, but that was just, I wouldn't say lazy because he obviously didn't mean it, but that was just a stupid moment, because down the sides, gone out for throwing, and we would have been up the pitch. So that kick alone really screwed us up and annoyed me.
Going back to the Kirkes thing again, just sorry, I keep harping on about it, but we have got 3 centre-backs on at that point. Another thing, when I've watched it back, I look and see how isolated. There's no one near Kirkes. No. It's just Kirkes and Mbuemo, and we've got 3 centre-backs on the pitch, and they're all trying so desperately to get across, and none of them get anywhere near him. And I just think that's really poor as well.
That's a good point. Kirkes is the left wing back at that stage, isn't he?
Exactly, but he shouldn't be in that situation so isolated that deep in the pitch without having some sort of centre-back come in to back him up, especially as we had 3 of them.
But I would say in that instance, we actually had quite a weirdly high line for a team that really was sitting back so much. Right. That was we were really quite high up from a goal kick. So it seems like in the moment, Iraola did want to compress the pitch and try and make us as high up as possible, but just like in that situation, it really didn't work out. We've talked a lot about defending. Actually, we should talk about our goals a little bit, because obviously, fantastic news for David Brooks to get his first goal after the cancer diagnosis, but Dominic Solanke scoring the only goal of the game that really wasn't so heavily reliant on a opposition mistake, and one of the most proper front nine, number 9 striker goals that we've seen him score. Really, lovely ball, lovely slide tackle to win the ball from Kirkes. Senesi bombs on and does what I think is the best part of his game, is taking the ball forward and making those lovely passes forward. And then Solanke makes Ben Mee look like a fool, who was a player that a lot of people were sort of going quietly, well, maybe he should be included as one of the centre-backs of the season last year. And similarly made Flecken look like a bit of a fool as well. So it was a really, really nice goal and obviously quite a good counter-attack. And we needed Solanke to step up because Kluivert and Semenyo didn't impress me in that game in terms of going forward. I think Kluivert put in some really hard work. I think he won a lot of balls and was very aggressive, which I love to see because I didn't think I saw enough of that earlier on. But in terms of quality going forward, I think Semenyo had his worst period of worst match for us so far. And Kluivert, again, I just want to see him combining more with players. I feel he holds on to it too long, but I don't know what you guys think.
It's funny with Semenyo because I was just going to say that it was his poorest game, but I think he's set the bar quite, whether it's artificial or not, very high so far this season, and expect a lot more of him. Again, I still think he wants to play by all stretches down the middle. He's not going to take Dom's place at the moment, but again, I would like to see Semenyo down the middle because I think he's a real physical presence. But I thought Kluivert again was certainly the first half was quite direct, got into really good positions with his running, but then his final delivery wasn't great, or his final decision making wasn't great, which is what a lot of people say about him. But yeah, Dom's goal was brilliant, and this is what we want to see more of Dom. Don't think too much about it. Instinctively, one touch, bang, go. You know, when he does that, he's brilliant, and he should do it more.
Yeah. He did quite a few goals like that in the Championship, different league, I know, but currently Dom Solanke has moved his run rate from last season that was 1 in 7 to 1 in 3 or 4. So he is on target, Steve, to get double figures.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure in that game, just prior to that, or before, just before that, he'd had a similar sort of opening where he tried to go shift it past the defenders, and they kind of just ushered him wide, and he didn't really do anything. And then he had that similar kind of opportunity, and he just thinks, all right, I'm going to have a shot this time.
Yeah,
and that's what you need. That, like we said, that's that instinct that he needs to just click and bang, have a shot. And I think it goes through Ben Mee's legs and just it's tight underneath Flecken, and he can't get down to it. And it's a good. That's what he needs to do more of. And
you don't have to wait for the perfect.
No, exactly. It's almost like he kind of just knocks it forward, feigns, and you think he's going to shoot, and then he just runs out of space a lot of the time. Yeah. But I'll go back to something that Jon said with Kluivert, and I agree with him here. Is that I do find he was probably his better game from him on Saturday. Thought he was quite intense. I thought he did do some good stuff, but he does tend to hold on to the ball that little bit too long. And you think there's a pass there, give it, cut it back, go outside of you, or look for Dom, and he just it'll come. I'm sure of it, but it's really just sort of fine tuning him at the moment. I think it's almost like he feels he needs to do it himself to impress, and that's the sort of thing I get. And it's not. It's like, come on, there's a team around you. Give the easy pass.
Yeah, look, Dom hasn't solved the problem yet with the fans fully, but we all want Dom to do well. If he does well, the team does well.
Exactly.
And we should finish very high. And he's had a good start in 4 games, and we need to make sure that he can continue to deliver. Let's have a look at the Premier League table then as we go into the international break. You'll see that Bournemouth are 16th. Haven't yet got a win on the board. Neither have Burnley, Luton, Everton or Sheffield United. But you can spin this how you want, guys, because you can spin it like Mark Jackson did in one of the comments on Twitter to say that in the corresponding fixtures last season against what we've done, we're +2 up because we lost all of them in the reverse fixtures last time. You can spin it that we already had 3 points on the board last season because we beat Aston Villa. Or you can spin it that the 4 teams we played are yet to lose. I still feel really positive about this. We're now going into this international break where we can get good players back on the field, hopefully. Not all of them, but some of them. Tavernier was a good sign coming off the bench. Tyler Adams, hopefully, will be ready to go. Sinisterra might need a few more weeks after the international break. And there are internationals going off, about 13. So we hope they don't pick up any injuries either. So I don't know how you guys are spinning it, but I do think we're not in the bottom 3 and wins are going to come very soon.
I thought we were going to have 1 point from 8 games at one stage. So we've already got 2 because Brentford's not an easy place to go. There's some. It's funny because we're playing Chelsea. I wonder if it's a good or bad time because they obviously lost to Forest. They're in a bit of turmoil. They haven't hit the ground running yet, but hopefully we can continue that. But I think a lot of their players are probably going away, so it's not like Pochettino has a huge amount of them to work with as well during the break. So that's one that hopefully we can get something from. I don't see why we can't pick up points, but no, obviously Adams is back by all accounts. Hopefully, a lot of pressure on his shoulders. As you say, Sinisterra should be. There's no reason why he won't be available, and obviously Tav back, and who's the other one? I don't know.
Alex Scott won't be back, but
no, Scott won't be back.
But
yeah, but we'll see.
Our hour is nearly up, guys, but I do want to talk about this very quickly, like a little mini quiz, because in the Premier League last weekend, there were 3 hat-tricks. Got me thinking, right? So we've had 3 hat-tricks in the Premier League. So 3 hat-tricks in the Premier League in our history. Now, very, very quickly, and I am asking you quickly because you've got to think quick. Can you remember the 3 hat-tricks we've had in the Premier League? One of the players has had 2.
Callum Wilson's had 2. One of them
has had 2.
One of them at Huddersfield and West Ham.
He has.
Yeah.
And the other one was Josh King.
One is Josh King against West Ham.
Against West Ham at home.
Done. Too easy.
He missed a penalty.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he scored his first goal and did all that to sort of
did the
apologise
sorry
that
to
he's
the
missed
crowd,
his first. In fact, we missed 2 penalties that game. Benica Foley missed a penalty in that game. I'm pretty sure I remember.
Yeah.
We missed 2 penalties in that game. What a time to be
Maybe
alive
that's
for a
why they
Bournemouth
stopped
fan.
giving us to them.
Yeah.
So we could never score them.
So, Dom Solanke, we drew a hat-trick. We're due a hat-trick in the Premier League. Right, what's coming up on the channel? We might drop a few videos on the channel between now and the next episode of Cherries in Focus, but I think we will come back live very close to the Chelsea game. So yes, Aaron, very good conversations on this one. We didn't lose on Saturday, and the squad is now ready for the next couple of months to get some Premier League points.
Yeah, look, I normally don't like international breaks, but I'm quite happy with this one because, as I said, we need to get some injured players back and fitter. So yeah, confident. As I said, we look at Liverpool since we played them. Look at West Ham. Look at Spurs. It's not a bad 2 points, but and the media can think what they want, but I'm pretty confident.
We'll look at this September calendar as well, Steve, when we come back for the next episode. I don't expect us to keep many clean sheets this season, but I do hope we can sort of achieve 1 or 2, even if it's just for you.
I think to put a positive spin on it as well. We haven't got battered either in any of these opening games. Like we're all head in our hands after Liverpool last season, going, "What have we just witnessed? Never seen anything like it." And here we are playing attacking football. It's really fun to watch. It drives me nuts at times because the defending is not the greatest. But the emphasis isn't on the defending. That's the thing. It's the defending is done up the pitch, and the one for me when like Aaron's just pointed out, the international break, we can get some fit players back. I think it's going to make a massive help for my blood pressure, if nothing else, is Tyler Adams, because I do think if he is what we've been told he is, he's going to make such a massive difference to our defending. It's that simple. We talked about that goal for the chance that Brentford had through the middle. That doesn't happen if we've got a Tyler Adams in there. It just doesn't. So bring him back, get him back fit, and it'll be all right. We'll be fine. We'll be the ones smashing people 9-0.
Tab's back. That's all we need to know.
Tab's back. Plan A to Z, right, John? Thanks, John, for coming on this episode. It's not quite full rock and roll yet, but it was never going to be instant. But we are getting there slowly but gradually.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about improving. It's all about working towards the style. It's I've coined in my head that it's an extended pre-season up until October. It's all about getting more used to Iraola, and then we've got the Everton, Burnley, and Wolves in 3 games that we desperately need to start getting wins from. But and the other spin I would put on recently is that Brentford also drew 2-2 away at Tottenham also drew 2-2 away at Brentford, and look at Villa going to Liverpool and getting beaten 3-0. They couldn't even score a goal. So we're doing so much better than we were last season. So it's been very positive, and more positivity to come in the next Cherries in Focus.
Right, thank you so much for checking out the video. Do subscribe to the channel, do hit the like button, and you didn't get your proper analysis on Match of the Day, but you did in Cherries in Focus episode 7. Take care of yourself, make sure you hit notification bell for more videos. We'll be back soon. From me, John, Steve, and Aaron. We'll see you on the next one. Up, Cherries.
Up, Cherries.
You red.
Eat paella.
Bravo.